The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, denounced new attempts to destabilize the peace and institutionality of the Central American country. In Venezuela, Defense Minister Vladimir Lopez denounced that a coup d'etat is still underway by far-right agents after the July 28 presidential election. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin takes part in the 9th Eastern Economic Forum held in the city of Vladivostok under the theme Far East 2030, combining strength to create new potential. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, denounced new attempts to destabilize the peace and institutionality of the Central American country. The head of state rejected any type of meeting between drug traffickers and politicians who only seek to generate chaos in the national territory. She also rejected the plan of these destabilizing agents to overthrow her government and destroy the next electoral process in the nation. Likewise, the president stressed that the same coup forces of 2009 are rearticulating with the national and international media to plot a new coup d'etat, while urging the population to repel such actions against Honduran institutions. She also stated that her government will not allow the extradition treaty with the United States to be used in a selective manner.
Pueblo hondureño, en relación al video del 2013 publicado hoy en redes.
Honduran people, in relation to the video of 2013 published today in networks, I condemn all types of negotiations between drug traffickers and politicians. As I expressed in previous days, after the threats of the ambassador of the United States accusing the Joint Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces and the former Minister of Defense of drug traffickers, I ratify that peace and internal security of the Republic are at risk. The plan to destroy my socialist, democratic government and the next electoral process are.
The Honduran head of state also asked the National Congress and the Public Prosecutor's Office to reform legal regulations so that the security forces can combat organized crime with force.
Le solicito a la Fiscalía General de la República ejercer drásticas acciones.
I request the Attorney General of the Republic to exercise drastic actions in all the cases presented here, without any selectivity, in order to combat drug trafficking. I respectfully request the National Congress, where my party is in a clear minority, to reform all legal regulations so that the security forces of the state, currently limited, can combat this organized crime with force. To the new Minister of Defense, lawyer Rixi Moncada, I order her to provide all the tools and technology required by the armed forces to prevent Honduras from continuing to be used as a bridge for the trafficking of drugs that are consumed by tons in the countries of destination.
The foreign minister of Honduras also condemned the accusations made by Washington against her country officials for alleged meetings with drug traffickers.
Immediately after the return of Minister Zelaya and General Roosevelt from Venezuela, the U.S. ambassador openly and outrageously accused these government's public officials of Honduras of being drug dealers and of meeting with drug dealers, and we reminded the U.S. that they were the ones who met with drug dealers, that both Presidents Obama and Trump, and also Red Stevenson, Mike Pompeo, Nancy Pelosi and other top names in the United States government openly met with Juan Orlando Hernandez in the past, knowing that he was a drug dealer.
Todo el sistema de seguridad del Estado fue desmantelado.
The entire security system was dismantled, using our territory as a bridge to introduce cocaine to the United States. turning it into a drug trafficker's paradise during the 12 years and 7 months of their narco dictatorship. The processes initiated in the United States, as has been demonstrated, are selective in the face of the activity of the corruption networks.
During the briefing, the Minister of Defense of Honduras, Moncada, provided a detailed report about all the cases involving major political personalities in the country. The first case accuses Mauricio Villeda, former presidential candidate of the Liberal Party and current deputy of the National Congress, for allegedly receiving a bribe of $200,000 and $250,000 US from the Cachitos cartel in exchange for helping Carlos, aka El Negro Lobo, to recover assets that had been seized from him. The second case accuses Roberto Micheletti, former president of the National Congress, of having received $500,000 US from the Cachitos cartel in exchange for providing protection to this cartel after the 2009 coup d'etat. The third case deals with Freddy Najera, former deputy of the Liberal Party, sentenced to 30 years in prison after pleading guilty for accepting bribes in exchange for each vote to support Mauricio Oliva's proposal as president of the National Congress. The fourth case deals with Gianni Rosenthal, former deputy and former presidential candidate of the Liberal Party and current president of this political institution, sentenced to 3 years in prison. The fifth case deals with Leopoldo Crivelli, former mayor of Choloma, department of Cortés, accused of allegedly receiving bribes from Giovanni Fuentes Ramirez in exchange for protection. The sixth case deals with Midense Okeli, former deputy of the Liberal Party, who pleaded guilty after being accused of drug trafficking and mentioning for allegedly receiving $500,000 US from the Cachitos cartel. Lastly, the seventh case deals with Victor Savillon, current deputy of the National Congress, who participated in a meeting where the candidacy for the presidency of the National Congress of Oscar Najera was discussed as the one chosen by the drug traffickers to lead this power of the state. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Venezuela, the Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, assured that a coup d'etat against the country is still underway after the July 28th presidential election. Padrino Lopez stated on a lecture at the Military Academy of Caracas that the July 29th and 30th criminal incidents right after the presidential elections were not the end, but a part of a coup plot that will continue seeking to undermine the Venezuelan institutionality. In addition, Padrino Lopez denounced the supportive actions of foreign governments favoring these attacks that attempt against the country's sovereignty and peace by targeting its services and institutions. Also in Venezuela, the Minister of Transportation, Ramon Velázquez Araguayan, denounced on Tuesday a new sabotage against the electric system of the railroad at the Libertador Simón Bolívar station in La Rinconada, Caracas. The minister affirms that this attack took place in the early hours of the night, where a fire was detected in the electric plant. Moreover, Velázquez emphasizes that thanks to the work of the fire department, the operation of the railroad has been reestablished with total normality. He condemns these criminal acts and has requested an investigation on this case to find those responsible for these actions intended to disturb the peace of the Venezuelan people. The International Committee for the Freedom of Jorge Glas stated that the health and life of former Ecuadorian vice president is in danger and demands an international medical commission for his care and the right to asylum. The committee warned on Monday in a press conference and through a press release that Jorge Glas' health is delicate, alleging that the treatments for the chronic diseases he suffers are insufficient. Recalling the violent kidnapping of Glas last April 5th at the Mexican embassy in Ecuador, the committee alleged that the La Roca Penitentiary Center, where he was transferred, does not meet the minimum conditions of health and safety for any person. And in Chile, the UNITAS 2024 multinational naval exercise, organized by the United States Southern Command and the Chilean Navy, began on Monday in the city of Valparaíso. The operations of the year are carried out between the 2nd and the 12th of September, with the participation of 4 countries, 17 ships, 2 submarines, and 23 aircraft on the coastal regions of Coquimbo, Valparaíso, and Magallanes. Chilean Vice Admiral Claudio Maldonado expressed that they are very happy to be able to participate in this exercise because it also allows them to show the capabilities and preparation for planning and conducting operations that the Chilean Navy has. In a statement released on September 3rd, the Brazilian Supreme Court reported that its systems were simultaneously attacked on August 29th and stopped working for 10 minutes. They stated that the court's technical team acted quickly, withdrawing online services and implementing new layers of security, so that all accesses were normalized and there was no operational damage. The attacks were registered on the same day that the Supreme Court Judge Alexandre de Moraes decreed the blocking of the social media X after the platform failed to comply with the order to appoint a legal representative for Brazil. In Indonesia, Pope Francis called for increased interreligious dialogue to face extremism and intolerance. After meeting with President Joko Widodo, the Pope gave a speech in which he criticized the upsurge of violent conflicts in various regions of the world. Pope Francis assured that the Catholic Church aims to increase interreligious dialogue and to help a society still marked by a terrible gap between rich and poor. The Pope also advocated harmony in respect for differences, whether cultural, ideological, or otherwise. We have now a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation forces continue their siege on the Gaza Strip for the 334th day since the onset of its genocide against the Palestinian people. In this context, civil defense teams recorded 1 dead body and 6 wounded after the Zionist regime shelled a residential in the Al-Tufa neighborhood, east of Gaza City. In addition, an Israeli attack on a barracks housing a family in Al-Sahaba wounded 4 other civilians. As health authorities reported, more people were injured in other parts of the devastated enclave following drone strikes and artillery bombardments launched by occupation forces. The death toll of the ongoing genocide in Gaza has increased to 40,819 since October 7th. Meanwhile, the Israeli army continues its siege of the occupied West Bank for the 8th consecutive day. At least 33 Palestinians have been killed and 130 wounded since last Wednesday, most of them in Jenin. Israeli military vehicles destroyed the streets of Jenin as part of the campaign of harassment and collective punishment against the Palestinian people. Municipal authorities report that 80% of the city's infrastructure has been severely damaged. Authorities added that at least 30 Palestinians have been arrested since Tuesday night. And 11 months after the beginning of the genocide against Palestine, figures show the non-compliance of Israel with the ruling of the International Court of Justice, as well as its intention to exterminate the Palestinian people. Let's see some data. So far, at least 10% of the Palestinian population has been killed, wounded, disappeared, or arrested. With respect to this, more than 49,032 people have been killed by Israeli fire 94,100 have suffered amputations or permanent disabilities, and more than 10,000 children have lost at least one leg. Regarding these, 9 out of 10 people murdered are civilians, of which 33% are children and another 21% are women. Regarding infrastructure, 32 of the 36 hospitals in the Gaza Strip are operating at less than one-third of their capacity due to the damage caused by the attacks of the Tel Aviv regime. In turn, people from Gaza face not only constant bombardment, but also lack of water, as the per capita share of water has decreased by 97% due to the destruction of the water infrastructure. In the United States, pro-Palestinian demonstrations were resumed at Columbia University in New York. Prior to the beginning of the new academic year, dozens of students protested against the aggression perpetrated by the Zionist Israeli army in Gaza that is supported by the United States government through economic and military assistance. Among the expressions of protest that several students resorted to, the alma mater statue of the campus was stained with red paint in reference to the bloodshed by thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin took part in the 9th Eastern Economic Forum held in the city of Vladivostok. Under the theme Far East 2030, combining strength to create new potential, the event is attended by some 6,000 guests from 76 countries. The forum's agenda includes debates on international cooperation, the global economic situation, business meetings, and project promotion events for different industries. The Eastern Economic Forum has been held since 2015 and seeks to develop the Far Eastern economy and expand international cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region. In this context, the Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng and stated bilateral relations have reached an unprecedented high level.
Thanks to joint efforts, relations between China and Russia have reached an unprecedented high level. I hope that during today's meetings and tomorrow's joint work at the Eastern Economic Forum, we will be able to look for and find new directions for our cooperation.
Since the beginning of this year, President Xi Jinping and President Putin have met twice and reached a series of important consensuses, which have pointed out the direction for strengthening our bilateral cooperation and planned a new blueprint for the future from a new starting point on the basis of the past 75 years.
And the 9th Ministerial Conference of the China-Africa Cooperation Forum was held in China, laying the groundwork for the opening of the summit in Beijing. The Chinese Ministers of Economy and Foreign Affairs and the 53 African member countries of the forum were among the more than 300 attendees of the meeting. Since the 8th Ministerial Conference held in 2021, the sides have implemented joint outcomes that include 9 programs prioritizing China-Africa development and cooperation. Among other objectives, the event seeks to promote the alignment of the African Union's Agenda 2063 with the Belt and Road Initiative and other projects presented by China. And on September 4, 1970, Salvador Allende won the presidential elections in Chile, and 2 months later the Congress ratified him as president of the country. It was Allende's 4th nomination, and his victory represented the culmination of decades of efforts by the Latin American left. On September 1st, Allende ended his campaign with a gigantic rally in front of nearly 1 million people. Around 3.5 million citizens over 21 years of age were called the polls. Salvador Allende, who won in 10 of the 25 provinces, consolidated his victory with the wide margins achieved in popular localities of Oakland and Santiago, and in the provinces with the highest proletarian concentration. His government was endorsed by Unidad Popular, a coalition of 6 parties headed by communists and socialists. His government tried to establish a socialist state by sticking to democratic and constitutional means known as the Chilean way to socialism. Likewise, it was intended to implement projects such as the nationalization of copper, the nationalization of key areas of the economy, and the improvement of the agrarian reform. Right-wing parties and groups in alliance with the unions and nationalist forces deployed an increasingly radical tactic with the aim of overthrowing the democratically elected government. Salvador Allende, Chilean surgeon and socialist politician, committed suicide on September 11, 1973, after a coup d'etat attempted to overthrow him. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.